the scariest story I've ever heard, even though it ended in an attempt. I know this is a lot of speculation, but please bear with me. When I was in the 3rd grade of elementary school, I lived in a small apartment for a while. I was renovating a house my grandfather had given me. It was an old, musty apartment, but he decided on it because it was close to his house and inexpensive. And, of course, it was cheap. There seemed to be a lot of tenants. I remember that there were tenants on both sides of my room. One side was occupied by a kindly-looking old couple, and on the other side, a stocky, gloomy man and his mother. And a woman who looked like her mother lived on the other side. Let's call this man, for now. The auntie would call out to me in the morning to say, "Good morning." She would say, "Good morning," to me in the morning, and chatting with her mother. But on the other hand, I probably had some kind of disability. His facial expressions were a little strange and his eccentric behavior was conspicuous. To give an example, he was wandering around the corridor at night for no reason. He would lie down in the elevator, moaning and groaning. So, the people in the apartment building, including my family, were friendly with her, but kept a certain distance from her. I don't know if that's why. I don't know if it was because of that, but within a month after I moved in, I saw her less and less. Then, about 3 months after we moved in, for some reason, I stopped seeing her completely. And somehow I disappeared along with her. I thought at the time that she had probably moved out. Then one day, I came back to the apartment after school. I felt something strange looking at me. I looked around to see if my friends were there. I looked around, but no one was there. I thought it was strange, and then I noticed something. The room next door, the room I lived in, had its door slightly ajar. The door was not fully automatic, of course, but it was designed to close by itself under its own weight. So, the fact that the door was slightly ajar meant that someone was holding it open behind the door. Someone is holding it open behind the door, or something is stuck in the door and it won't close. I wonder what it is. I wondered if it was better to close the door, since it would be burglar-proof. I was staring at the door, wondering if I should close it. Suddenly, the door slammed shut. I was surprised at the time, but I resolved myself that it was an old apartment. I solved the problem myself. However, when I came back from school the next day, the door was slightly ajar again. I thought that maybe the door was not put up properly. I tried to pass in front of the door, but this time, the door closed a little bit. Only then did I realize that someone was on the other side of the door. But then I assumed that the ladies next door had moved out, and I mistakenly thought there were thieves and ran home in a panic. And when my parents came home, I saw someone in the room next door that I thought they had moved out of. I complained to them. But the next door neighbor is Mrs. XX, isn't it? What are you talking about? I remember that they replied without hesitation, "What are you talking about?" It seems that although I had stopped seeing him, I heard the sound of daily life from the room next door from time to time. So my parents knew that A's family was still living next door. After that, almost every day, the door was closed when I left in the morning. The door was always closed when I left in the morning, but when I left for school, it was slightly open. When I left for school, the door was slightly open. But there was nothing special about it. I knew that it was not a thief. I got used to it. Then one day, we decided to play at home. I came back to the house with my friends. I found the door slightly open again, but I thought nothing would happen anyway. I tried to pass by the door as usual, but then, suddenly a thick arm came out of the door and grabbed my arm and pulled me into the door. I screamed and resisted, but I was too weak to resist. I screamed and tried to fight it recklessly, but the arm wouldn't let go even after I scratched it. But fortunately, my friend noticed my scream and pulled my arm away. My friend noticed my scream and rushed over to me. He rushed over to me. My friend stabbed me in the arm with a small shovel, and stabbed me in the arm with a shovel from the other side of the door. I thought I heard a scream like you. I thought I heard a scream from the other side of the door. The arm poofed away. I took the opportunity to run away in. I quickly unlocked the door to the house and jumped into the house. But although it was good to escape, I couldn't get out. I couldn't get out of the house. I don't know where to call. We were so distressed that we decided to play games for now. We decided to distract ourselves by playing games for the time being. Now that I think about it, we were pretty carefree, weren't we? Then time passed. About 5 o'clock my mom finally came home. Mom finally came home. She hurriedly told me what had happened. At first, she had a hard time getting people to believe her. But finally, with the help of her friends' defense, she was able to get them to believe her. My friends said they were running late, so my mother decided to drive them home. My mother was going to drive them home. I didn't go with them at that time, so I didn't know what was going on. But my friend later told me that the door was still open a little bit at that time. My father returned a short time later. He had already heard about it from my mother on the phone. As soon as he got home, he went to protest the superintendent. He said he was going to protest the superintendent and left. I was relieved to hear that. I was watching TV or something. After a while, the room next door suddenly became noisy. Then my dad came back in a hurry. He told Mom something and left the house again. After that, we did what we always do. I ate supper, took a bath, and went to bed. The only thing that was different was that I didn't see my father that day. Now, this is all hearsay. I heard that something terrible was going on in the next room. Something terrible was happening in the next room at that time. I was in the room with the superintendent using a duplicate key. I was dead with his neck wrapped around his neck. If that was all, it would have been a normal suicide case. But the room where he hanged himself. It is said that the room where he hung himself was also quite abnormal. First of all, dozens of hanging ropes were hung from the ceiling of the room. There were dozens of hanging ropes hanging from the ceiling of the room. They were very serious ones, with hooks carefully driven into the ceiling. I committed suicide using one of them. And second, a large number of photos of boys were found in the room. A lot of pictures of boys were found in the room. They must have been hidden in the room. Most of them are blurred or hidden in the shadows. I was told that a lot of them were found in the room. Of course, my picture was among them. I had died clutching my picture. Lastly, and this is the most shocking part, in that room, there was probably a letter from the aunt to A. A letter to A from her aunt was found in the room. The contents of the letter were, "Whenever you feel hard, use this rope. If you want to go with your friend, use the spare one." And so on. I don't know all the details, but this is what my father told me when I came of age. I don't mean to make fun of the mentally handicapped. I honestly don't know what they are thinking. And then there was I felt lonely and wanted to talk to them. Maybe they saw me talking happily with my friend and pulled my arm. Then maybe it would not have killed himself. But even if he wanted to go with me and was trying to pull me down to hang me up, and I'm scared to think that he was trying to drag me down to hang me. I'm so scared. This will be the scariest experience I've ever had.